Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of TBR. I'm George Binns, and we have with us this evening our state representative, Hannah Bowen, to talk about what's going on downtown. And I guess one of the interesting things that's come along is there's a few housing bills that are coming up.
There are, yeah.
So what are they going to do different?
Well, so there's a lot happening at this sort of interplay between what each community can do to address the housing crisis and what we can do at the state level. So communities like Beverly have been sort of testing out lots of different strategies to get the kind of housing that we need in a way that's affordable for people who already live here or want to live here. And, you know, over the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen more action at the state level to try and sort of level the playing field amongst communities that are taking action to address the housing crisis and those that have been slower to. So we've heard a lot about the MBTA Communities Law, or 3A. You know, in Beverly, that wasn't really an issue to apply, but in many communities, it meant changing zoning in a more significant way to enable denser buildings to be sort of legal, but not necessarily built, but at least zoned that they could be built by right near transit, because we all invest in the MBTA and being able to create more housing that's transit oriented just makes a lot of sense from a planning perspective and would help alleviate the crisis. So that was more controversial in some places than others, but has sort of settled in. And then also, last year, the legislature passed a large bond bill, the Affordable Homes Act, that had policy changes and money for housing. But it turns out there's still a lot that needs to happen. So, you know, as I'm coming into this role, really looking at what have we done in Beverly that could be kind of the floor for what's expected statewide, and what else can happen at the state level that will benefit us here.
Yeah. You start to look at some of the numbers, and it gets kind of scary.
Yeah.
At, one of the numbers I pulled up, was thinking about today, family of 4 needs to have, excuse me, $300,000 annual income to live comfortably in Massachusetts. I don't know who's got that kind of money.
I certainly don't.
No, I had a fairly good job for a number of years and nowhere near that level.
Yeah.
So not sure what that analysis is based on. And if somebody's smoking something they're not sharing, but...
No, I mean, it's the reality of housing prices being much higher than people can afford and climbing much faster than average wages have or median wages have. And so a lot of us find ourselves in the situation that, you know, we're working the same amount, we're working just as hard, we're working similar jobs, and what we're earning, more of it has to go to the basics of housing, transportation, food, and less is available for anything else.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that's putting a real strain on people and really locking people into, you know, if you find a housing situation that you can afford, you have no chance of moving, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of movement in the housing market. And there's a lot of strain on renters who, you know, might want to buy but can't, people who own homes and can't move to something that is the right size for them at their phase of life. People are really kind of locked in.
Yeah, we had a discussion one time with one of the gentlemen that worked for Harbor Light Homes, and he and his wife were living in a condo down on Rantoul Street in the Millinery. And they decided, well, we want to start a family, and he just got a new job, so he was a little happier.
Yeah.
And he started looking around. He had to go all the way to Lawrence to find something he could afford, and had similar discussions with some of the shopkeepers downtown, and the people that work for them are coming from Canada. Not quite, well, New Hampshire is almost the same.
Yeah,
but
feels like a different country some days.
Yeah, and it's the reality of people that live in Beverly don't necessarily work here. And the ones that do work here probably can't live here either. So that gets to be a strain on the society in general, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. We need housing that people at all stages of life and all income levels can afford. We need that mix in Beverly and across the North Shore and across the Boston area. And so, I think a lot of what people think of when they hear more affordable housing is large buildings and heavily subsidized sort of taxpayer money going into buildings to keep rents low or to make affordable home ownership. And there are elements of that, but there are a lot of different ways to get more variety of housing at all these different price points. So we've talked before about accessory dwelling units as a way to fill in a little bit more rental stock in neighborhoods that might not have as much, and usually at lower rates, with or without any subsidies or incentives. It's just they're naturally tend to be more affordable than whole new construction or even the large buildings. There's also, really interesting work being done around land trusts or ways to sort of use public money in a way that you don't have to build the entire project, but with a public-private partnership or working with nonprofit developers, you can keep costs down. Of course, the costs of construction are a big challenge.
Yeah.
So also thinking about reuse of buildings that are already, up and standing in ways that create different types of housing that we need. All of those are things that are on the table right now. And even though there have been changes in state law and there are communities updating their zoning and sort of streamlining processes, there's still more that we can do. So I think some of the conversations now are about what are the standards for parking. I know you have many years of service on the Parking and Traffic Commission. It's always a hot topic. And it's one of the things sort of orienting all of our design choices around cars has really increased the cost of construction and limited what we can do for that variety of housing that people need. So taking another look at parking minimums, looking at how we get the kinds of designs we want without limiting the size of housing artificially. So there's some really interesting options that I think Beverly is pursuing, but also that we can do statewide.
Yeah, and the problem is it's not a kind of thing where you change one thing over here and it solves all your problems.
Yeah.
It's an integrated mess that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
And the typical example is you get back to the law that says around a MBTA station you have to have, was it a mile radius, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
They have to have zoning that permits multiple family housing. Good.
Yep.
That sounds nice. Not everybody can take a train to where they need to go.
Yep.
So, and as we mentioned earlier, that it probably takes more than one income to be able to afford one of these condos or apartments, rentals. And if everybody can't, in the family can't take a train to go to work, you need a car. Mm-hmm. And most likely you probably need two cars. So you're stuck with...
Although a lot of people are choosing to limit the number of vehicles they have in their household, both because of the cost and the environmental footprint and just the lifestyle choices. But you're probably going to need
But that drives up the
some
requirement for more parking space. And if you got parking space, you can't build a house necessarily on top of it.
Yeah.
And you get into some messy situations with having a garage on the first floor.
Yeah.
I can remember one of the proposals was down where the very end used to be, down back when during World War II when they were making nuclear material. Yeah. They got that property down on the Bass River, and they wanted to put in some condos and apartments, fine. And they wanted to put in a basement apartment right on the river. I mean, that's just waiting for an accident to happen.
Yeah, we're also having the conversation about coastal resilience and flooding. So any new construction has to factor all of that in. Yeah.
And we ran into another interesting predicament that the property that they were going to develop into the dollar store, they wanted to have first floor was going to be a parking garage. Sounds good. And then they wanted to put in charging stations for EVs. Whoops. that gets to be a little bit challenging. That what happens if one of those EV lights off,
Yeah.
and you get 5 floors of apartments above it? Not a good situation. So
Yeah, and our building codes have to evolve with technology
Yeah.
to make sure that we're building
Yeah.
safely and not evolve too far past what's needed. So we need our building codes to ensure we're safe, but also not slow down the pace of building. So there's this balance between having enough
Exactly.
regulation in place and not overly cumbersome regulation, or regulations that are easy to meet and understand and you can actually plan for, and not have to just sort of be jumping through hoops. So it is that balance. And I think, we're striking that balance pretty well in Beverly. And I know there are people who I hear from who say, I don't like the size of some of the buildings or the style of some of the buildings downtown, or have, worries about losing some of the architectural charm and the walkability. And to me, it's really striking that balance. So the Family Dollar building right on Cabot Street, there was a meeting a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, to start the conversation in the public sphere about what should the next version of that look like. So when the city took that property, it was to protect parking and to use the building as a temporary city hall during city hall renovations, and to eventually put it out for a request for proposals for developers to turn it into a mix of retail and housing, was sort of the initial proposal. And now it's not going to be used as a temporary city hall, so it's even more urgent that we reactivate that space.
Yeah.
It's just been sitting vacant with an art installation, but no activity. Reactivate that space and really use it as an economic driver, a social center if we can, get people back using that space, and to continue to chip away at the housing crisis.
Yeah, yeah.
So that meeting brought up some really great ideas about what's still needed downtown, in that space and or around the rest of downtown. And all of that takes a little bit of compromise, right? Of throwing a lot of ideas on the table and saying we can put these ideas together in this building, but then we're still going to need a community space. We're still going to need a hotel came up. We're still going to need more art spaces. We're still going to need a wider variety of housing. So which of those can we address here? And what else can we be doing downtown to address all those other needs?
And we get into the other issue of the other hat you're wearing is still city councilor at large.
Yeah.
That we're facing a very challenging budget
Yeah.
in 2027.
Yeah.
And having the dollar store sitting on the books, paying the interest on it,
Yep.
and spending money on it.
Yeah, we can't afford to have empty buildings on the
We
books.
can't afford to sit on that thing
Yep.
because there's other needs for the money.
Yeah.
And we have to balance that too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it gets to be really challenging.
Yeah.
And we get into these situations where everybody wants to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And sooner or later, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, and sooner or later we have to make that decision.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good that conversation has started in public. People can watch the meeting on BevCam, thanks to the BevCam team, and sort of get caught up on what's been floated so far. And it's not a done deal by any means. I think coming out of that conversation, it sounded like the next 2-3 months will really be the key period to weigh in on what that request for proposals includes in it, because we can require developers to say how they'll achieve different community goals before we're willing to part with that property and at what price. So I think I really hope people get involved in that process. And then, I'm thinking too, as you said, about sort of taking off the counselor hat soon with the elections coming up in November. Someone new will step in, putting on the state representative hat, really thinking about how these two levels work together. So for a project like that, knowing what state programs are out there to access funding for affordable housing, what grant programs there are for planning work around that project, what is possible under state law and what's not. Sort of what understanding those things has been important so far. And I'm thinking about some of the other proposals that are out there now around how to encourage things like affordable home ownership, long-term affordable home ownership. There are some changes to state law that would make that easier that are being proposed right now. And there are funds potentially available from the bond authorization last year, that Affordable Homes Act, that can be translated into programs, but sort of need to actually get there.
Yeah,
so just because it's authorized doesn't mean it happens. You have to have a program
in paper on the
exactly.
to get the hands on the money.
So we have to be watching, what is the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities already doing, and what can we push for that would help Beverly achieve our goals for
how can we fit in with the plans that the State House is thinking of?
Yep.
And you get into some of these issues that a couple of my concerns on it is that, number one, you talk about having a walkable downtown area. Mm-hmm. It's one heck of a hike from downtown to the Stop and Shop.
Yep.
If you want to go for some groceries.
Yeah, I do that walk, and I can't carry more than a couple bags back, but, that's part of the trade-off if I don't want to have to pull out a car.
There are people who are not as agile as you that that gets to be a real challenge.
Yeah.
And so having some sort of replacement for Bell Market that went out business 5 years ago now, I guess.
Yeah, more.
In downtown would be one of the ingredients we should get into.
Yeah, that was one
of
the
ideas. And the other one is, if we're going to talk about a walkable downtown, we need to also have some sort of public transportation as an alternative to moving a dollar store out and putting in a new Stop and Shop downtown. So, I mean, these are a lot of the ingredients.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to the puzzle.
It's a complicated situation.
And I think we will never be quite done with it, right? Like, we need to keep evolving what the policies in place are, what the regulations are, what the incentives are. So there's other pieces to the puzzle. Like, I'm thinking about local advocates have been pushing for a rent stabilization bill to bring back the option for communities to opt into rent control in communities where rents are rising so fast that renters can't keep pace, and where putting a cap on those increases year by year would not discourage development because development is already so advanced in those communities. Looking at a real estate transfer fee, so on the highest priced properties, a small percentage, 2% or less, being paid into something like our affordable housing trust to go towards affordable housing in the same community. There's additional layers of protections for tenants that are being proposed, additional layers of protections for small landlords being proposed. So there's a lot on the table, and I think we have to just keep chipping away at it because it's not a problem that's going away on its own.
No, and the usual explanation is once you get into rent control, you just can't afford to build any new houses.
That can happen in some instances, but the research across different communities and even in Massachusetts before rent control was most recently removed from state law as an option for communities, it's really mixed. It really depends on the community, and there are ways that it benefits renters to a greater degree than it harms landlords or developers. And to me, housing is not like other types of economic activity. It's our homes, it's where we live. And so a policy that benefits renters and therefore leaves more money in people's pockets to spend at small businesses and to spread across the economy, like that is worth some trade-off. Where the trade-off is so large that it actually halts development or makes being a small landlord impossible, right? That's not a place where you want to use the policy, but there is research that there are places where it works, and I think is an option that we need back on the table here.
Yeah, as we were mentioning, as I mentioned before this started recording, that Austin, Texas has developed a different approach to keep the rents down, and they caught a good time period where the interest rates were very low. I think it was practically zero interest. And developers took that to their advantage and started building rental housing
Yep.
developments. And Austin has actually been able to drive down the average rent because there's so much supply that you can't compete if you
Right.
drive your rents up.
Yeah,
So-
imagine that. And I mean, we're constrained on land here and don't want to start building on open space if we can avoid it.
Yeah.
So we're dealing, and costs are higher now. But I think it's a good example of if you start getting ahead of the problem when you can and when
Yeah.
it's affordable, you can go pretty far.
Yeah, and that brings up another problem that, as you mentioned, we don't have a lot of land to spread around, not like Austin, Texas has got.
Yeah. So infill is really important,
Yeah.
and having policies that make that possible.
So we get into also the zoning changes
Yeah.
that permit multifamily houses.
Yeah.
Way back when, it used to be one of the paths to success is you buy a three-decker,
Yeah.
you live on the first floor, and you rent out the next two.
Yep.
And eventually, you got two people helping you pay out your mortgage.
Yep.
So that works. And all of a sudden, it became not the thing to do anymore. And zoning starts making everything single family on a
Yep.
big lot.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
and we
one of
find
the
us-
proposals that was just in the housing committee last week would enable like duplexes and triplexes pretty much anywhere a single family is allowed if it meets the other dimensional requirements. And to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. If a current lot could fit a family of 12, why can it not fit 3 families of 4
Yeah.
who just happen to have different housing units? So yeah, I think that sort of moving back towards that model would work for a lot of people.
Well, way back when I used to work for a living, there's a couple of guys at GE that I know of that were into the real estate business on the side. And one of the comments I always remembered is that if you own one multifamily, you can't make money on it. You have to own 2 or 3. So you have to get into the business big time. It's not something you do casually on a weekend
Yeah.
kind of thing. So the idea that somebody would come in and develop what I consider the duplexes or fourplexes or 2 duplexes side by side
Yeah.
keeps the height down so it doesn't change the character of the neighborhood too much,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it does provide the additional housing requirements that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So that gets to be an attitude change on the not in my backyard tribe,
Right.
that they have to learn to tolerate that, hey, we just can't do this anymore,
Yeah.
and not support the people that we depend upon downtown for the service industry that makes this a vibrant community. So
Yeah, exactly.
you just can't keep importing people forever
Yeah.
from far away, especially without a better transportation system.
Right. Yeah. We can't both prevent people from finding places they can live near where they work that are affordable and complain about the traffic of people trying to get from one place to another to, live and
Yeah,
work
I
where
mean,
they can.
Everything gets integrated together,
Yeah,
and
yeah, they're related.
there's no one piece that you can change and, that solves it.
Right.
No magic bullet or
No,
whatever.
no.
So-
And that means we have to be working on all of these things. We can't just say, well, since there's no single solution, we should throw up our hands. We have to work on all the different solutions.
Exactly, yeah.
That will
It's
help.
it's a multifaceted process, and it just takes a lot of different actions to do it.
Yeah.
And they all have to work together, because if you do just one, it doesn't do any good. And then somebody says, aha, that didn't work. We ought to never do anything like that again.
Yep.
And it gets to be very deteriorating in the terms of how can you get something done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we want to be on that sort of upward spiral of we have housing that people can afford, and therefore our small businesses are thriving and getting walking traffic. And we then can sustain the transportation infrastructure that makes the housing make sense, and
Yeah.
it sort of all gets better and livable and really prioritizes that quality of life instead of the spiral it feels like we have been on a little bit,
Yeah.
where things become unaffordable, and it feels like that deteriorates the quality of life. So sort of getting on the policies that build for each other and create that sustainable quality of life that we're looking for, I think makes sense.
I think Beverly is very fortunate that Harbor Lights is sort of headquartered here. And the two projects that they just finished, the conversion of Briscoe into senior housing,
Yeah.
and the second addition to the Anchor Point.
Yeah.
There is housing that is deliberately designed to be affordable.
Yep.
And the neat thing about Briscoe is that as the seniors move into something that they can downsize into, that leaves the old house available.
Yep.
So it enhances the turnover of the property. Otherwise, you get into, as you mentioned earlier, you get into a house and we got it, and what do we do now? You know?
Yeah. Now we're stuck. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it starts to unlock that process. I
Yeah.
know, and honestly, one of the complaints I've heard about each of those developments is that there were people living in Beverly who applied for those lotteries and didn't get spots. Valid complaint, and to me, it really points to the need for more, rather than,
Yeah.
it's sort of like, oh, why did we go and use some public funds and this whole mixture of state and local incentives to create these buildings, and it's still not enough? Well, it means we need to keep doing more. It means the need is really there,
Yeah.
and we need this whole set of other policies to be making sure that we're producing housing of a wide variety of types, including those types of housing, but also the kind of the missing middle that we talk about and everything else.
Well, the other advantage of Harbor Light is it's a private enterprise, and it's not a government enterprise. And they have an incentive to maintain it. And that was the demise of Igor Pruitt and a few other places they tore down. So anyway, we've had a half hour of our fun.
It goes fast.
Oh, yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And this is a serious subject that we need to get into more often. And what do we do about it? It's easy for us to sit here and talk about it, but something has got to happen. So if you got a comment, there's room for you here at the table. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.